set? Oh, you got that over there. Okay.
These are changes you said from last time?
No, there's an addendum. Well, we'll go over it again.
Oh.
All right. We all set?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, very
Is
good.
everybody here? You expect-
Everybody's here. Mr. Kelly and Mr. Worth will not be joining us today. But we're all set to roll?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Nantucket Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, February 12th. The meeting is called to order. Introduce the members of the committee on my left or the right of your screen. Joe Grouse, Craig Sperry, Steve Mooring, John Tiffany, and with the back to you, Clifford Williams. Jim Kelly and David Worth will not be joining us today. And is there any public comment on anything that is not on our agenda? Okay. Hearing none, approval of minutes. There's a number of minutes that we have, and Terry, thank you for updating us, starting with January 20th, January 22nd, February 2nd, February 5th, and February 9th. Am I have that correct?
Correct.
Okay. We have received those. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those minutes at all?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jeff. Yes.
I was going through the meeting minutes of Monday the 2nd,
Okay.
and I'm just skipping ahead and make sure I get the right one here. There are, in reading through the discussion looks pretty much as I remembered it, except some of the dialogue or comments that are attributed to me, I think was either Craig or someone else on the committee, because while I remember the discussion, it wasn't me that said the stuff that was attributed to me. So,
Okay.
now, I don't, it's sort of a correct discussion, so if that's, if we tend to let that go, I don't really care, but I just know that.
If you're not objectionable to the print that's accredited to your name, I think that's fine. If not, then we could vote or we could not vote. We could strike out anything with your name.
It's not incorrect. I sort of remember the conversation, but I think it was one of the other committee members that was talking to Mr. Reed, I think it was, at that point. Because again, skimming through it, it looks kind of the way the discussion went. I just don't think it was me.
Okay.
But like I said, I have no trouble just approving that as is. They're not they're not incorrect.
If you're comfortable with that, unless anybody has any objections to that, I'm
Okay.
as long as the what's in print is pretty much what transpired.
That is
discussion.
I would say it is. It is.
Actually, there is one thing I noticed that and maybe I'm incorrect, but it was mentioned the rooms and meals tax. Wasn't the discussion really just the rooms tax that were not so much the meals tax? Okay.
They might have said something about the meals tax.
But I don't think that really was germane to our discussion. So, all right, on page 2 of 10, right at the top of the page, maybe I said it. Where it says, where I have me saying it is use of rooms and meals tax. We really just rooms tax for this discussion of the 30%. So if anyone has any objections, we'll strike that. Meals. Just make it and meals. Just strike and meals and instead rooms tax. Anybody, any other comments on any of the minutes mentioned? Again, the 20th, 22nd, 2nd, 5th, and 9th. None. Other than that, I'll ask for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, or any comments on that? On the motion to approve.
This is just from that one day, one meeting, right?
I think
Made the motion.
let's be specified. The motion is the motion just for February 2nd or for all the meetings?
Well, the only reason I bring it up is I wasn't here on February 2nd, so
Okay.
I'll need to abstain from that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so one abstention for February 2nd, and the other one.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So then all those in favor of the motion for all the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're all set, and we have one abstention for February 2nd. Great, thanks. Now we're all up. Committee reports, I do not have any. And the only one, again, we talked about the other day, so this is pertaining to the contract review committee. They will be coming in next Thursday for their presentation. Any other committee reports? Okay, hearing none. Moving on, review of zoning articles, which is completed. Moving on to review of vehicle articles. And before I give you the floor to Mr. Boris, Mrs. Snell, we've been provided with an addendum of maps to complete the maps that were given to us the other day. So everyone has that. And with that said, if you want to come on up, both of you, you get a microphone. And I think we are on 71.
Is that it? Okay, I was going to ask.
Are we on the sewer articles? Do you want to talk about those?
Yes.
Okay, we're on 71.
So basically, 59 was missing from your packet. That's a zoning article, so now
Okay,
you
so
have
that's
that.
the map, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And 70 had an error in it, and so please replace your map 70s that you were given with these that have been updated with corrections.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, everybody got that? All right.
Okay.
Okay, take it away.
Article 71, this is the sewer, first of 5 sewer articles. This article was created basically internally, so DPW Director Richard Ray and myself worked on this. We're adding the properties outlined in green. One of the problems with the sewer district that we've long recognized is it went to only properties that were connected, not properties that should be connected. So this sort of rounds out the district. There's a number of reasons why Plainfield Road, the cluster subdivision of Hydrangea Lane, and the area along New Street should be included for water protection. So they now are. And then the Stone Post Way, which is basically along Low Beach Road, was the one area not included. So that has been included. Property that's owned by the land bank or conservation groups is being removed, and those are in the red.
Okay.
So there's no confusion about, all kinds of land that's not connected, which you may remember from the paper before. So the sewer district hearing is next week, right, Libby?
Yep, and DO's meeting next Wednesday.
Yep. So this has not had the public hearing yet, but we did apply the ranking system prepared by the sewer work group, and this area exceeded the minimum number of points, so it's recommended for positive action.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, very good.
But,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe I missed it. Does this include some of the, isn't there citizen articles in Sconset? Is that?
It does, and I will get to that, yes.
Okay, very good. Got it.
Now, does this, on the map, if you look at the green, and you said the red was excluded,
Removed, yep.
removed, just for my own thought process, is there anything that's in blue there that is not on the sewer in the map?
Yes. There are some areas that are not yet connected
Yes.
that need to have the infrastructure extended. For example, across from Hydrangea Lane, there's a cluster. This is essentially on the west side of the water tanks.
Mm-hmm.
So that area needs to be connected up, and that would probably happen in conjunction with adding the areas in green.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest of it, Blackfish Lane, I don't know that all of that is connected yet. That was added, I think, a year or two ago. I'm not sure if Isabel's Way, there's the property there that, I don't know if that's been added yet. So there may be a handful that haven't been.
Okay.
Christie?
Andrew, could you explain what's going on with the removed parcels there? It just looks like they're on the east side of the road there.
Yeah.
And is that, are those lots that were...
They're owned by the land bank,
Okay.
and so they're not going to be eligible for sewer. So again, we don't want to leave the idea that there's land that should be connected that's never going to be. So that's why those parcels are removed.
One other question. It looks like after these additions, there doesn't seem to be that much more to do in Sconset. So what's the outlook as far as rolling in the rest of the town, the village? I mean, it seems like there's a few little pockets here left over. Is it just managing the district?
Yeah. I hope, well, I never want to say it's done, but I think that this should be the end of it for now. That we should have all the properties that need to be in are in.
Yeah.
So we've done a comprehensive look at it.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, we move along to 72.
Okay, so 72 is the area of the in-town or the Surfside wastewater treatment plant. So the same provision is at work here. The area in green is being added. The areas in red are being removed. So the areas in green that are being added are where you see Bayberry Lane. That's an if you know where the State Forest well is, which is roughly where it says Tacoma there. Mm-hmm. So that area is within the zone of contribution for that well. It should be included. Where you see Blazing Star Road, that's a 40B, and that's all connected anyway, so it should be included in the district. And the other main area is up here off of Cliff Road. You see there's an area of green at the edge.
Yeah.
That's a unified area. That's 5,000 square foot zoning with a lot of properties on septic. There are wetland resources that all drains into, and basically that's why that needs to be included. And then there's a few properties. There's one mistake on Green Meadow Lane. There's a few other random properties that are infill included as well.
Christie?
Andrew, on the lower part of the map, off of Surfside Road, there's 3 little parcels next to each other that are to be removed. The long one there, is that?
Oh, yeah.
What does that represent?
That's a greenbelt area that was set aside for open space. So it's essentially what we call the Myocomic Greenbelt. It's the area that was set aside. It's near where the Human Service Center was proposed at one point. And it's basically that's where the valley is. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought that little where the appendage comes up towards Mycomet Road, that area that is still yellow, I thought that was the area that was the greenbelt.
Not Satan's Path.
No, it's not.
It's not, no.
No, there's an open space buffer that ran along Surfside Road in front of where the Human Service Center was, and it's following that lot line. The site of the Human Service Center has already been removed
Okay.
because all of those parcels are going to be merged into one greenbelt parcel.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a
Joe.
background question. Andrew, when you get in, if these plots that get included in the sewer district, does that mean that they are required to connect to the sewer, or that they have the ability or the right to? I guess I'm just, what does it mean for if you're a property owner?
Yep. Right now, if you're not in the sewer district, you can't connect even if you wanted to. So at this point, you could privately connect. There's not any rules or regulation that say you have to yet, but it's something that I think is coming in the future. So.
Okay.
Christie?
Andrew, I guess, is it safe to say anywhere where you're removing is basically like vacant, there's no building on the land?
Right. It's
Or are we removing any from currently some of the sort? Like houses that currently?
no. What we're taking away is cemeteries, land bank land that's not going to be built on.
Okay.
Any municipal-owned land can have a sewer connection. Like, so if it's a park, it can always be connected to the sewer. The municipality is exempt. But again, we're trying to have this so there's not an impression, a wrong impression, that there's, all this property
Waiting to be.
waiting or,
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? ahead to 73.
So now we're getting into the citizen articles, Cliff, that you mentioned. So the first one is essentially a subset of the earlier Article 71. So it's included in what we're recommending as well. So for the same reasons, the reviewers are recommending positive action on this article as with the other one.
Just for a process, we should make a motion to adopt, if you're so inclined, adopt both articles?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, depending on what the selectmen ultimately do,
Assuming everything.
there is a threshold question if the Board of Selectmen, acting as the sewer commissioners, it's a simple majority if they recommend it, it's a super majority if they don't.
They don't. Oh, I see, okay. Okay, so we still have to take each one on its own, though, that's what I want to be sure about.
Yeah, we did that in the past, and I think it's important to do.
Thank you. All right. Questions on 73? 74.
74 is also a citizen article, and this particular group is in both the Wellhead and the Harbor Overlay District, so it's a subset of the earlier group. So again, we recommend positive.
Okay. Questions on 74? All right, 75.
Article 75 is another citizen article. 7 properties, South Pasture Lane. On this particular article, this proposal did not meet the minimum 9 criteria in order to recommend.
Okay.
One of the things that was raised that we've heard is, oh, this is the area that's part of the My Comment watershed, so it has to be included. Our Board of Health Director checked that, and actually this area is on the very edge of that, so it's not recommended as a priority area for sewer. What he does recommend is down on My Comment Road and My Comment Avenue, which are directly in the watershed and right at the edge of the pond. If there was a priority area that needed sewer, that would be where you would go. This area, is a zoning district. Generally, the areas that are prioritized for sewer are areas that are under an acre, require less than an acre in lot size. Currently, this particular group is a 1 acre zone now and is served by town water, so it's just not seen as a priority.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this was brought up last year also?
Yes.
Is there any changes between last year and this year on the intent of the article? On the
No, I think what's different is the report, My Comment Watershed report.
Okay.
And if that had included most of it, it may
would
have
change it. Okay.
changed the recommendation. But again, the Board of Health, our Director of Health, believes the water flow is towards the ocean, not the pond in this particular location because of the grade.
Okay. I guess just one other, not to be devil's advocate, is that, how objective is that opinion? Is that that the health director has provided? I know I'm not, because I'm just trying to.
Well, I assume that it's subjective. I have no reason to believe that it is personal.
No, I don't mean personal, but I mean is that how is the water goes one way versus going another kind of thing. Thin ice here. I'm just wondering how strong is this opinion for?
Well, both he and Kara, DPW director, who have engineering backgrounds or at least exposure, were in full agreement on that.
Okay. I'm just getting at it. I want to be sure that our recommendation is rock solid.
Yeah. I think both of them felt, I think all of us felt, yes, maybe this is an area that would be okay to sewer in the future,
right?
But after the priority areas are done.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That helps. Chris?
I don't know what the backing is. I don't think it's a strong argument because I think there's probably numerous examples around the island where flow is the same as this might be, not knowing what the other priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
But just a comment.
No, that's fine. I think, and again, my not trying to be obtuse here. I just want to be, I mean, this is not the first time that this individual's tried to get on in. I want to be sure that whatever recommendation is just works out. Joe?
So, kind of to follow on that, Matt, this is a citizen petition. These people want to be included in the
That's
sewer
correct.
district. What's the financial impact to the town of, you know, we're sitting here debating whether we want to support it or no action, right?
That's
So if we
correct.
support it, does it cost the town any money? I mean, does that mean they end up being number 272 on the list of places where the town has to build a connection, or is it just, great, you're in the district and 50 years from now we get to it?
Well, recently Woodward and Curran updated the CWMP, and they're the same engineering firm that looked at the Mycomb watershed. And at this point, they project that there's capacity to add all these numerous other needs areas, and there's not a lot of leftover potential. So that's basically where we're at, is that, you know, there's not, at least at this stage, until we've hooked into all the other areas that have been identified through this process as needing sewer, we're sort of not adding on others that would be nice to add but don't have demonstrated real needs.
Okay, because the problem being, sorry, Matt.
No, go ahead.
The problem being that you've identified priorities that can use up the capacity of the system. This is, you know, below the line, so to speak, and would push us, you know, if we did all the other things, push us beyond the capacity of what the sewerage plant can handle at this point.
Right.
Okay, so that's the financial risk to the town.
Capacity, right.
Okay.
Christie? And then John.
Andrew, is this a private road?
It is.
So how does that differ from public road as far as putting in infrastructure?
On a private road, basically, the private owners would get together. They would have to fund the sewer extension. They would have to grant an easement afterwards for the town to come in and repair it. So,
John?
Yeah, I just, Joe, what you were saying, I think the key is, and I think you're clear on it, but I just wanted to make sure, no one's saying that if you added this would put us over the top. They're just saying that there's several other priority areas, and it could, but might not. But they'd like to add those first and then see how it goes, because we have found in the past that some projections of certain areas, the projections aren't, you know, by reasonable circumstances, just aren't particularly accurate. So, you know.
Well, I'm just, as sort of the new guy, I'm trying to figure out, okay, when we vote on the motion, for this particular article,
Yep.
what are you supposed to weigh? I mean, because part
Okay.
of me says, naively says, well, who cares?
Well-
Let them in the district. What difference does it make? Does it cost us anything, right?
I always try to break it down and be basic, because I can't know all the intricacies. It's about capacity and that the system can hold. And if I understand your answer is that this is low on the totem pole for priority to tax that capacity. As for direct financial implications of the towns, no, they get on the system, it's on their dollar. One concern I have, I believe the citizen who sponsored this mentioned something about failing septic tanks. Does that go into, that's part of the checklist, and that was you, the engineers, and you felt that, that's not really the case so much?
well, again, the Board of Health, the Director of Health checks his files for failed systems, and, you know.
I'm sorry to go over these things, but I just, as we all know, we just want to be sure we have where we're coming on that. But going back, does that make sense?
Right, because we're going to tell this citizen,
Right.
sorry.
And the board, the selectmen as acting as the sewer commissioners will probably do it first. Yeah. Great.
Andrew, did you say if this received a positive recommendation?
This doesn't go to the planning board, this goes to the Board of Selectmen.
This is ours.
And their hearing is coming up
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, being that it's not zoning, this is our recommendation. And the board can comment as they choose on the article, but this pretty much, that's why I'm asking these questions.
Great, thank you.
It falls on us. Okay, any other questions on 75? Okay, next is I think we're moving to
Mr.
real
Chairman,
estate.
sorry, I'm sorry to. Okay, so this particular homeowner, resident, is interested in becoming part of the sewer district.
That's correct.
There are other properties that have higher priority that the town and all of our professionals would prefer to use up the capacity first. But even on those properties, is there still the, is there any way to, how to say this? There's no guarantee that all those people would necessarily want to spend the money to connect to the sewer system. So in a timing sense, if this guy is sort of ready with money and his neighbors to do this, in theory, he could glom on and use some of the capacity because he's willing to spend his money, when some of these other residents who we're saying, we prefer you to do it, but they could still say no, and they don't want to spend the money, and, I'm just wondering if there's sort of this opportunity issue of, here's someone who's ready to spend the money and connect to the sewer system versus someone we would prefer to connect, but who doesn't particularly want to make the financial commitment.
Well, I think it's more than prefer. I think that the other areas have been identified to have some serious health issues. It includes Nantucket, it includes the Somerset area where there is, a complete history of failed septic systems and more imminent threats to public health. So I think that if we were to say, oh, well, you people are ready, we'll put you in and you in and you in, suddenly when we get ready to connect the people that need to be connected, that capacity has been eaten up.
Do we also, for those people where there are health issues and we really want them to connect, is there some process or program that you're going to push them very hard to make that financial commitment? I mean, or can you force them to commit it, maybe is a better question. Yes. Okay.
If somebody doesn't want to, if someone is voted into the district and has to tie in due to whatever reason, the selectmen by decree or whatever can force them.
Well, there's a Board of Health regulation right now.
Okay.
That requires that within a certain period of time, if sewer becomes available at your property, you must tie in.
Okay.
That's
Okay, thanks.
And that's within 2 years.
Okay.
If you're notified by the Board of Health that sewer is available for connection, you have 2 years. If you're in an environmentally sensitive area identified by the Board of Health, it's 6 months. But the sewer line has to be there. That doesn't mean you have to go and connect from 5 streets away.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
And I think Nantucket and some of these others are starting to be placed in the capital budget, so these are coming, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
Maybe you already talked about them. I don't know.
They're coming. Well, no, they are. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Does that help?
Yeah, appreciate it. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. So, have any other questions on 75? And that's it for the sewer. The next one is 87. It's a home rule petition for the conveyance. I don't know if you need the county.
Oh, 87.
Do we need the?
Maybe that was on my other maps. I can talk about that. I think that was in your. Maybe. Did I not bring that up this time? 87 is, there's a handful of county parcels left, and I think, since the late 90s, we've been, the policy has been to move any land owned by the county over to the town. In case counties are eliminated, they've been eliminated in other areas of Massachusetts, so we basically are moving any actual land over from the county to the town. So in this case, there's a handful of them, mostly out in the western, in Nantucket, some out on Esther Island, and then a couple down on Washington Street on the harbor. So those are the properties that are included. So
You had a map from the last time.
the last one? Okay. That's it. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Any questions on that? And 88 is a real estate conveyance to the land bank and the Nantucket Conservation Land Trust.
Right, and that was, sorry, that map was in my last group as well.
All right.
And those are properties, believe all of them are essentially protected land. So they're basically, they were purchased by the town for open space purposes.
Okay.
And the idea here is that these are, at least the first group, these are discretionary, that the selectmen could convey those to the land bank if they thought that was a good idea.
Okay.
There's also a property here which is 3 Baltimore Street, which town administration has entered into talks with the Nantucket Conservation Trust, Nantucket Land Conservation Trust, to possibly exchange for other property out in Nantucket. So, again, that's a protected property. It's not like we're giving away a buildable property. It is already protected conservation land. They're interested in it because it adds to their particular inventory of protected land there.
Okay. All right. Very good questions on that.
I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Chris.
sorry, I missed, what was the MLCT?
Nantucket Land Conservation Trust.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Any other questions on that? Moving on to 89, which we do have a map from today, and it's a real estate disposition home rule petition, transfer of 47 Prospect Street and 1 Milestone Road.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
a
Board article.
real estate transfer. So in this case, this is the Mill Hill Parkland at 47 Prospect Street. It's a portion of it. The Mass State Constitution says that if you are to transfer land from park purposes, you need town meeting approval in addition to a home rule petition. So this is the actual transfer article. You also have to take land of equal value and area and put a restriction on it. So in essence, you have no net loss of conservation land. So that's why the milestone parcel is identified.
Okay. All right. Questions? All right. Very good. Moving on to 90. Oh, and this one note on 89. The chairman of the Board of Selectmen has mentioned to me that he would like to give a little presentation on this article. So I believe on March 2nd we'll put this on the agenda to hear a little bit more about that.
What's,
On 89. The board's rationale.
oh,
for
on
doing it.
89.
Yeah, the board's rationale for doing it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now moving on to 90, which is a zoning.
Right, and this is sort of out of order with the rest of them because everything regarding this particular parcel is in one spot here in the bylaw. So 89 is the real estate transfer issue, 90 is the zoning. So what this article would do would be to rezone the 1.5 acre portion of the overall 6 acre park to CN, which you can see that's the green area on the map here, and that would allow hospital-related uses.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
What's that? You got a question? No question, okay. All right. Hearing none, then we'll move on to 91, which is a home rule petitions conveyance again of property portion of 47 Prospect Street.
And this is that home rule petition that would be required in connection with the real estate transfer.
And this is a citizens warrant article.
Nope, this
Yeah,
is, I think,
91 is,
That's better.
it's fair to, okay, sorry.
That's okay, I got it wrong.
So the home rule petition will be required. Is that covered in another place?
That's in the selectmen's.
That's an 89?
In 89? Okay.
Okay.
And this one, is this one faulty?
Sorry?
This one is considered faulty, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I think he's been told that, too.
Yes.
I mean, too. I think everybody's.
So 89 is the home rule petition, go to town meeting.
That's correct. So this one, because it's faulty, just to go, we would take appropriate would be take no action. And then we can put a comment why, too. So. All right. Any questions on it? Next is the, I think 95.
Okay, so 95, we're starting to get into real estate matters.
Okay.
So the first article is, actually, this map doesn't totally correctly show it, but this is an article that would authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey portions of the fee or lesser interest in basically the land consisting of Baxter Road. Recently, the Board of Selectmen took a vote or the county commissioners took a vote to transfer this area, which is basically from Bayberry, as you can see on your map, north.
Yeah.
That land is the underlying land of Baxter Road, and that was transferred from the county to the town.
Okay.
So this would authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey portions of that for other purposes. And you may remember that the county issued some licenses to people at the far end of Baxter Road, which allowed them to move their house as far away from the bank as possible. So the right-of-way in that location is 50 feet wide, so that's a really wide right-of-way for Nantucket.
Okay.
There may be an opportunity in other locations to give people a little bit of extra land to move their houses over as need be. So this is what that article would allow. Among other, I mean, they could also convey pieces out if the road collapsed in places and they wanted to convey the underlying land for open space, they could do that. Again, it's a permissive article giving the board that authority.
Okay. Questions on 95? All right. And then 96, which is the same map.
Article 96 and 97 are related. These are the
Okay.
bright red, the little way that's shown towards the top of your map. That way has been identified and is currently under negotiations for an alternative access to actually, that map is wrong. It's a different one. It's further north here.
With that other little, between the two properties there?
Yep. See,
Across the street?
if you look at the absolute top way, it's
Yeah.
directly across from that.
Oh. And that access would go direct to Popus Road?
Correct. So there has been negotiations with the Sankaty Head Golf Club to get us up to that point, and then there's a last piece that would go up there.
Will this complete that? So if this gets approved, is that access approved then? Is that how this, or are we still a little ways away?
There's a chance that these articles may not be needed if negotiations are concluded,
Okay.
and there would be no need for this because there would be a voluntary agreement. I think that would be the best outcome, but negotiations are ongoing.
Okay. Questions on 96 or 97? All right, very good. Moving along to 98.
98 is industrial land that is located out off of the Bunker Road on the easterly side of the airport. This is related to the tank farm negotiations. So this would authorize the sale of this property for certain, and it's limited to certain energy-related uses. The Board of Selectmen is allowed to put a number of restrictions on that are discussed in the article. There had been an earlier article last year that allowed a 99-year lease, and this would allow this additional option to be considered, which would be the sale.
Okay.
And negotiations are ongoing.
Hope to be concluded before town meeting.
Huh? Good. Oh, great. Okay. Any questions on 98? Flip.
So you just think the overall benefit of this, is not making any more of this industrial, commercial, up there by the airport?
Mm-hmm.
We think it's just in the best interest to sell it, to get rid of the liability, I guess, is the philosophy.
I think that the consultant and a number of people weighed in on that. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons. One of them is the buyer is looking for site control, which isn't as easy with a lease as it is with a sale. And I think they basically indicated it's probably going to be a social sale.
Oh, okay.
And there is liability concerns
Yeah.
if the town were to retain it and the operator.
It would be, obviously, we have lots of wording in any kind of a lease agreement that puts all the liability solely on them, but
They go out of business or bankrupt or.
Okay.
And it's a total, this shows a larger area than what the final, it's 5 acres. And this basically shows a total of about 12. So it's a subset of this, it's not all of it.
Okay.
So hopefully in your final review, there would be a more defined parcel. Only showing 5, I mean, the limit is 5 anyway.
Questions? All right. Moving on to 99, which is the real estate disposition, long-term lease authorization for town-owned properties, Vincent Circle and Tacoma Way, FKA, 2 Fairgrounds.
This article is a housing initiative that would make land available for long-term lease. So it's land that had been identified through an earlier planning process as available for affordable housing. So it includes some properties along Tacoma and then land sort of wrapping around the police station, which you see in the on the map, and behind 2FG.
Can I ask a question on this? This is what the Remain is doing, that study for
Yes.
housing. And maybe this is a question for you, Libby. Will they have a conclusion or report by town meeting?
we're hoping they will.
Yeah, that's their goal.
Okay, because that certainly would go,
Yeah, that's the whole.
right. Okay, Cliff?
I think we had some philosophy last year on the corner portion where we gave up the lots in order to get some lots. And now it seems like we're getting the lots back again. Am I lost on that? You know what I mean?
No, yeah, yes. The lots that front along Tacoma are already authorized for affordable housing only. They're not authorized for broader purposes, which is spelled out in this article. So if this article were to fail, the earlier article still rules. The parcels will still be available for affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Here, we're expanding it, and it could be municipally sponsored for any type of housing. So we're expanding the purpose over those lots.
Okay. Greg?
I have a question. I guess it's for Libby. It's the discussion with Remain. Are those open meetings, or are they?
Well, we haven't actually had any discussions with them, other than initial discussions about having them help us out with engaging a designer. The idea is that once they've engaged a designer, there would be some public forums where people could go and provide their input, but none of that's been set up yet. But yes, there should be.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
I have a question,
yeah.
I guess for Andrew. With this lot, is there going to be a connection to Old South Road? Will there be a drive going onto Old South Road, or?
Probably.
Yeah.
The original plan shows that road continuing through and then curving around. So where that curve starts, that's what the designer is looking at right now, and they'll have some different options.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Good. Any other questions? Good. Next one is Article 100, the long-term lease authorization for the airport road.
And that map was in your other other packet, and that is basically the airport gas station.
Yeah, they realized that they hadn't actually sought this long-term lease approval from the county.
Okay.
It's a-
So it's a housekeeping? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Questions on that? And the airport's okay with that?
They put it in.
Oh,
They
good.
put it in program.
Okay. All right. Next one's 101.
So 101 matches the earlier home rule petition. So again, this outlines, you see, this is the, with some of these land conveyances, there's a home rule petition, there's the actual vote to sell the real estate.
Okay.
And in some cases, there's some to acquire the title. So this shows the various parcels that would be up for transfer, so it includes, you can see the Baltimore Street parcel, Hill Point's on here, the one on Long Pond. So again, these are all, there's a mistake on,
And that's 88, this is the one that ties this,
yes.
okay.
Some of them, not all of them.
Oh, all right, okay.
They're, in general, I mean, the Eel Point Road properties, 139 Myacomet, 2 Long Pond Drive, 48 Cliff Road, 123 Hummock Pond Road are all protected. 6, 8 Rhode Island, 5 New Hampshire are not, so they are not on that earlier list.
Okay.
24 Low Beach is not, so it's not on the earlier list. 42 Nobodere is likely to be a yard sale, and that's on another article to come. 293 and 94 Nantucket Road is not protected open space, but would be on the list to convey to the land bank or the Nantucket Land Trust. It would be kept for open space. 12 Devon, 4 Devon, and 17 Clarendon at the end are potential housing or yard sale properties. 17 Clarendon is definitely a housing a parcel that Housing Nantucket has expressed interest, and 3 Baltimore Street is the one we talked about
Okay.
in Nantucket.
Questions? Okay, all right, very good. And moving right along to 102.
So 102 is essentially a bunch of paper streets, and I believe that was in your earlier packet.
Okay.
So the first 2, Old South Road and Hinsdale, are covered in another article, and these are crossing the airport boundary, so they were never properly taken. So this is really a housekeeping matter.
Okay.
Atlantic Avenue is,
Before you go on, just about the airport.
Yep.
Again, not the big guy, and the airport is okay with those, with this housekeeping?
they had requested this, so.
Okay, they have to, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so wanna be sure.
Article
Thank you.
107 is the article that, the companion article that conveys this land back to them.
Okay, all right, thank you, sorry to interrupt. All right, Hinsdale?
Hinsdale was the airport one. Atlantic Avenue is off of, in the Cliff neighborhood. It's a paper street running through a property. That would be a yard sale. Folger Road between Sherburne Turnpike and Hamlin Road has 3 abutters, and they've asked that that be eliminated, so the 3 of them are working cooperatively with that one.
Okay.
The unnamed way between Eel Point Road and Nantucket Harbor and Eel Point Road are paper streets near where Eel Point takes a turn out at the, it's at the northwest corner.
Yeah.
There probably would be footpaths reserved in that, in the conveyance that follows on that.
Okay.
On the first one, not the second one. The second one is just a bypass. Mississippi and Utah and Oakland are in the same vicinity in Nantucket. There may be reservation of a walking path which brings you to Goose Pond, or is it Goose Pond? Or the edge of Long Pond, I think. It would connect with Nantucket Conservation Trust land there.
Okay.
Washington Avenue and L Street are, again, a part of the network of paper streets in Nantucket. They would be offered through a yard sale. They're not, they don't connect to open space, so. And they're not needed based on the current density.
Okay.
Warwick and Clinton are in Monomoy. Again, they're not needed based on the current density there, and they're surplus. Would be part of yard sales. In Sconset, we have an unnamed way in Ann's Lane, 2 unnamed ways off of Baxter. Adeline Street, which is, again, sort of internal roads between Sankaty and Baxter Road. And again, they were, when they were laid out, there was a higher density proposed, and they're basically not needed. And we've had several abutters come and say, can you help us get rid of these, because they frequently cause a problem. So, The 5 unnamed ways between the eastern sideline of Baxter Road and the western property line, these are at the end of Baxter Road. They're shown actually on an earlier map. These are on the east side of Baxter, so they're not passable, but they're properties that the town, we think we should buy for the future. So, let's see. Another Atlantic Avenue and an owner unknown parcel are in the same location. This is in Surfside. This was on last year. We hope to conclude negotiations with the property owners, and this is related to paper streets. Ultimately, these properties would be deeded as beach access. Lover's Lane is a small section of street in Surfside that would be part of a yard sale disposition. Plover Lane, also in Surfside, part of a walking path for the land bank and a yard sale disposition. 24 Berkeley Street, we actually have an earlier warrant article from 2009 to convey that property, but we don't have an article to clear its title. So this is a title, this is to clear the title to that earlier tax title. That would be a yard sale disposition. Black Horse Court is a property within the town building property at 16 Broad. It's an old street that remains there. We would basically close that street out as part of the overall block there and just eliminate it.
This one here, so there's the town building.
It is off of Federal, near where the access way to the bathrooms and the little park is right there, between Visitors Service and the town building.
I'll be down.
Does it cut all the way through from Bellevue to South Park?
No. That's Court, Black Horse Court. Went to a barn there or something.
My God.
Westchester Street, Westchester Street is a variable width road, and there's a wide end of it at the far end and an easement that goes through somebody's house. They've asked if we could get that corrected. There's an unnamed way between Westchester and Franklin, which is, again, part of a higher density plan that has never materialized. That would be part of a yard sale. Unnamed way within these properties is, again, is a remnant of a road that has caused title problems for these properties. Be part of yard sale. The last properties are around the hospital. So Mr. Saperstein brought this up at your last meeting. So
This is the ones that the Civic League, or the Right-of-Way Committee and Civic League support?
correct.
Okay.
So North Mill Street runs into the park area. The unnamed way, the 2 unnamed ways run around the hospital site. There's a wider portion of triangular land at Prospect Street and the unnamed way, and then there's a section of Mill Hill Lane. So some of this property we would keep and just incorporate into the park, and the other land as it abuts the hospital would be eligible for conveyance to them subject to reservation of rights. So it helps them on their site for setbacks and ground cover, which I think you know their site is fairly constricted.
Matt?
Yes, Jim.
Sorry, what does a yard sale mean?
Yard sale is a program where we offer certain land, and you have to, it's called that to be like as an addition to your yard. So the excess land is sold not for separate buildable lots, but basically to be incorporated into your lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So 103 is a companion to those, and that's basically anything that I mentioned as a yard sale as a conveyance. So, and you'll see that there's some properties that are not included on this list because we would keep them.
Okay.
104 is Coffin, Fayette, Meter, and Francis. Unfortunately, you've seen this 2 years in a row. This is why we do road takings through the county, not the town, because once this is voted, we have 120 days to put the taking on record, and we missed that deadline.
Now we'll get it again.
We're going to do it till it gets done.
We'll get done. Any questions on this? No? Okay. All right. 105 is a citizen article, the real estate disposition, 40 and 42 are Sparks.
And that map is attached in your group. There's two parcels of land. The property on Sparks Avenue, this is where, you may be familiar, there's a walkway that goes through here back to the school. It's on the edge of the Newtown Cemetery. So there's two pieces of land here. The proponent of this article has identified these as a potential site for a funeral home. So that's what this is intended as.
Question?
Even though it's already zoned for that.
There is a companion zoning article, but that is unnecessary, correct?
Right. It's currently in the residential 10 zoning district, and a funeral home is allowed by special permit. So we didn't want to extend the commercial district here since you can apply for a special permit. And if it were a municipal funeral home, it would be allowed by right automatically. So.
Any other questions on 105? 106 is a disposition, real estate disposition, 3 Shadbush Road.
This is the same proponent, and this is
Different
a parcel of land. This is a larger parcel of land, roughly 2 acres out in the industrial area. And there's a companion, one of the zoning articles, there had been an individual article to zone this to commercial neighborhood. That received a negative, but we did include a funeral home as a potential use in the industrial area in a different article.
You mentioned that the other day.
So it's possible here. The difference between this site and the other site is there's really no utilities here, so this would need to be on
That's
well and septic.
well and septic. Okay.
Or there may be water to this area now, but it would require septic.
Isn't this the butt end of the tract where the tank farm was thought to go?
It is. If there is a potential for conflict with that, unless the tank farm goes exclusively in parcel G.
Okay.
All right. 107, which is paper streets at the airport.
That's the companion article to that taking, and you can see where those old streets go across the airport boundary.
All right. Questions on that? Can we go right through that?
What's the purpose of just taking the street even inside our land? What's the name? Just to clean it up?
It's house cleaning at this point. So.
All right. Question 108, which is real estate conveyance, creation of a public road with beach access. This is a citizen warrant article.
I put some notes on this particular one because we're hoping, we've had a conversation with the selectmen on this, and the area that's shaded in orange is sort of the compromise version here to report out favorably on this article. We have since, the land bank has actually already done some work to continue this walking path. Essentially, the issue here is there is a walking path that comes in front of the airport fence, and the property in question, which was part of the Divine case, I don't know if any of you know about that. Some of you do, right?
You can review if you want, but goody, oldie but goody.
The area where there's the black, there's now a house there, and that property, there had been a taking put on file by the airport in the late 60s. it had a number of procedural problems, like it didn't identify the owner, and they had no authority to file it, and there were some other problems like that, which eventually came to light in this particular lawsuit. So a private owner was able to reclaim this land, and now there's a house there. This issue came up as part of the yard sale and a one big beach easement that person is going to grant, where this path that comes in front of the airport fence was identified as important. So under this modified proposal, the path will continue in the orange area. So basically, the path comes down, turn north, turn east down the skinny area. There's a little path there right now. You would continue up alongside of what is called Russell Street, which is a private way, to an area at the end of Mattoxam Valley Road where you could park along that road, or if you were a jogger or runner, you'd continue down the road. So I think it solves the issue there, except for parking close to the bank, which is something that is not being encouraged in that location.
Let me ask you this question. Is this the motion that he provided, or we'd have to, there would be substitute language that we would vote on?
There'd be substitute language, and I'm having a plan prepared that would show this.
Answer that question. Any other questions on this? Cliff?
Seeing we're going to bring this to light and say that we encourage people to use it, but is someone going to build a set of stairs so people can hear just jumping off the bank and continue to the road?
The land bank do that?
The property to the east of this, on the opposite side of Russell Street, is actually owned by the land bank, and they are planning to prepare to build a stairway down on their site.
Okay. Any other questions? Craig?
So on the map, the airport fence runs along that edge?
Yes.
In both cases?
Okay. So the airport fence would not have to be disturbed.
Happy about that. Okay. Further questions? Okay, very good. Moving along to Article 109, this is real estate conveyance in Petition Valley Road. This is also a citizen's warrant article.
Right, and Article 109 is not in proper form because the town of Nantucket doesn't own that property. The property is owned by the land bank.
So would that be one that we're pretty much limited to take no action? Okay, so there's no fixing it?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
You can't transfer somebody else's land.
Good try. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? I think that does it for real estate. All right. Very good. Any questions before we move on to articles? At this point, we pretty much have gone through almost all the articles, either review of departments or citizens. So on the next item on our agenda, I outlined a number of articles for review and potential motions. I thought we could start with 42 today, which is the article for zoning for coastal erosion. You may recall that discussion from the other day. And as a rule, with zoning articles, this committee has always, or in the past, has taken the position of supporting the planning board's motions. And I would encourage that again this year. But when it comes to 42, it seems to me to be a little bit out of norm for zoning. So if we as a committee feel that we want to just give our own motion, I would think that would be acceptable. Anyone want to comment on that? That's just one person's opinion.
I just think the, not fully understanding it, understanding it enough, it seems like it just creates a problem right off the bat by trying to give away somebody's rights. So, I mean, it seems like that's what it's all about,
Well,
in a sense. So
you could argue that, yeah.
It seems like there is instigating a lawsuit, but just creating muddy in the waters.
think, and actually, I'll give credit to Mr. Maury. When I started, you mentioned about financial implications. I started thinking about unintended financial consequences from it, which just ties into what you're saying. So I personally a little bit have some reservations about that.
Thank you very much for coming. See you all later.
So, yeah, I would be in agreement with you. Any other comments? Steve?
I don't think I understand the point that you two seem to be in agreement on. You think that passing this article would precipitate more lawsuits?
Well, it just seems like, I guess you want to put it in an application for, like, a building application, so now you're saying, okay, sign this, well, the person goes, I'll sign that.
Well, this isn't about putting it in the building permit. I think that was the proposed solution, or the proposed alternative to this bylaw would be, let's add another something to the, another requirement to the building application process. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I think this says, without putting another checkbox on the building permit, if you apply for a building permit for either the renovation or the expansion or new construction for any property within 300 feet of the coastline, you thereby waive your right to sue the town for any financial impacts that erosion might have on your property down the road.
Is that going to require some sort of a sign off, or that's just somewhere?
That's just you just know it now, and I think you just know that's. I mean, your
So no one's gonna
contractor
bring it to
knows, your
anybody's
engineer
attention.
knows.
Well, it's written in the article, and you have to sign it next to the whole harmless agreement.
So you sign something here. I think the other.
Just as part of the process.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's, like I said, we just got to explain to us the best, I guess they could, at the school the other day, so.
Christie?
Well, a lot of this is based on, if you're seeking a building permit, you have to sign additional, but it would be nice for someone buying a property that's not built upon yet to know that this is a stipulation before they buy the property. So I would think that zoning would get to someone before a building permit would. Maybe. I don't know.
I'm not educated enough to say.
I'm not either. I was trying to figure out if someone was buying a property 300 feet within the shore, that they would know that this would be, and I don't know if they would know that. Whoever's advising them probably should know it, I guess. So.
Well, hopefully when they go to the building department to get their building permit application, attached to the application for this type of property would be this release.
Right.
I mean, if this is approved to tell me, that process will have to be developed.
Good.
John, I'm sorry.
I was trying to understand your objection to this.
I'm not saying I'm objecting, I'm for or against it. I'm trying to figure out what's the implications or the unforeseen ramifications, because it's new to me. It just seems to, in the world of lawyers, it's just another job.
I think the lawyer's objection at the planning board hearing we heard was that this takes a tool away from them. This is one less opportunity to sue the town and get access to the coffers that we work so hard to protect.
I object, and I'll sue for that.
I think that's exactly their point.
Yeah, that's what I heard the other day.
Yeah, at least that's how their points were perceived by Rick and maybe some of the other board members.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know the details. I mean, there's a lot to iron out in this. In principle, I think I'm in favor of it. But I mean, I don't know. That's it. That's all I got.
Greg? That's all right. Go ahead, Greg.
As I recall, when the chairman of the Board of Selectmen talked to us, I guess it was Tuesday,
Yep.
regarding this he said he was going to get further information from town council about why they chose to go this way as compared to going with the home rule petition. So I don't recall when.
I think that there is home rule
Yeah, this is
petition
both.
language if it's necessary. This doesn't exist anywhere in Massachusetts right now. So town council wrote it in a manner that if the attorney general approves it and finds that it would need a home rule petition, then the selectmen could potentially file it.
Okay.
The authorization is there for them to file.
I wrote down something on the petition.
Okay.
so. But the planning board was,
4-0 against.
they were against?
Yeah, 4-0 not to adopt.
Because?
Because,
I wasn't at the hearing.
Oh,
I don't
sorry.
know. I'm
So
sorry.
we don't know what
I
the-
couldn't get a place to park.
no, I think they said this, is, if I remember correctly, they said it's something that shouldn't really fall under zoning. Is that?
I wasn't at the
Just
public
that
hearing.
it's not in the realm of zoning, it's just.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, they were griping about the fact of this mechanism rather than a home rule petition.
It was
The point
less,
is- The point though is, this takes a larger majority, but it can be instituted quick. A home rule petition could take some time, you know? and,
Could.
I think my guess, I should have asked them, but I didn't, is that if I were in the board of selectmen, they wanted to get this buttoned up, you'll get it done quicker this way. And you don't run the risk, you know.
I mean, if we think this is in the best interest of the town, then I think we would do well to write as much in our comment and to vote favorably on this article. I think if we kick this up to the State House, it's pretty sure that it's going to be a high profile target for people with a lot of money, people who have waterfront properties and maybe want to maintain their not just on Nantucket, but property owners all over the state who might see this as a potential precedent-setting article, and they would, prefer to preserve their right to sue, as it were.
Okay,
let's give it a try.
I suppose. Further, John?
Just in summation, I mean, anything that the lawyers are against, I'm usually for, by and large, and I hope I'm not insulting anybody in the room, but I don't think I am. But because, they do look at things like that simply as a way of cutting off a certain potential income. But, that income is going to come from, I think Steve said, it's going to come from our coffers, So, I mean, you kind of look at it and say, anyway, that's the commonsensical thing.
I think if we could get out of the business of being responsible for any negative repercussions of erosion, we should take every opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, if anyone is so inclined to make a motion, I would accept it. I think we've heard enough.
I'll make a motion to approve the article.
A motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, motion to adopt. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and discussion on that? Right.
You brought up, Mr. Chairman, about typically the Finance Committee goes along with what Planning Board.
We usually go to support the planning board's motion, that's
So
correct.
obviously, in this case.
This we are not.
If we pass this, we're obviously not going.
That's
Does
right.
does it happen often? That we go counter to?
I don't believe
Planning?
it's happened in my 8 years.
I think from time to time.
It does happen, but it hasn't happened in the last 8 years?
Once in a while.
Oh, okay, so I remember.
Not often, but.
Last year, there was something that we...
We had a comment, but it wasn't, it was, because they also did take no action, we just put a comment.
I see.
That's, but, yeah, you see what you're saying. That's, we could, certainly could, I'm not, don't listen to me, I just, in the past, we have. John, and then,
I don't, see, this is an unusual article, and I don't look at this as being a planning board article. I mean, what the
It's a
planning
board
board
article.
wants to do or doesn't want to do concerning this article is almost irrelevant in my mind.
In fact, the reason the reason we were told that they voted against it was that they didn't think it was in their purview to begin with.
Exactly. They didn't want it. But I'm with you, Steve. I'm saying any chance you get to separate us from responsibility of erosion, we should take.
Well, this is not, and this is also not to say that planning board opposes the premise of this, because they have not approved it based on their zoning.
Now, let me, I wasn't there, so
Yeah.
I'm going to look to you, and
Well,
you were there too?
I wasn't there, neither of us were there.
Oh, neither of you. Okay,
We're
so-
just parroting the characterization
So
that
I'm
Rick
a-
gave us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little uncomfortable with that, because I'm not sure. There may be.
I trust Rick. You don't trust Rick?
Oh, no, that's...
Fully.
That's not that's not a question of trusting anyone or not.
Gentlemen, we are on the record, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll say that. Rick, I trust you. It's not, to me, that's not the question. I just think until we hear it, we're not sure. That certainly sounds like a reasonable motive, but we're not 100% sure that that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
I
So
really don't care, so that's what I'm saying.
that's fine. You don't have. So we have a motion to adopt. My only concern is, and I can't even put a finger on it, why, except I'm just concerned about unforeseen financial implications from this in the negative way. I see where the positive way is taking away the lawsuits, but I'm just a little bit nervous about that. So
I'm
anyway,
comforted that this was crafted by town council.
that's a good point.
I mean, if this was a citizen's submission, I'd feel differently about it, I think.
Okay, well, any other discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor of this, of Article 42 to adopt, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. I do think we should do a comment. What does everybody else feel?
Yes.
Okay, and who would like to?
I think Steve would be good at that.
Well, I've never crafted a comment before, so I'll give it a shot.
Sure. All right, I'm going to put you down for comment, okay?
Yeah.
Steve, thank you. I would agree with John on that. I think that you will do just fine. Okay. Now, the rest of the zoning articles, and I can read through them, as far as I'm concerned, unless anyone voices anything different, it goes back to what I said earlier, is that in the past we have supported the motions of the planning board, and I don't see an issue on myself on anything different unless anyone feels differently about that. And if we're in agreement, I would like to read off the articles that motions have been made and call for a motion to adopt, to recommend support the planning board motion for these articles. Is that all right with everybody? Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read off the articles. Article 43, Article 45, Article 46, Article 47, Article 48, all motions to adopt. Article 50, Article 51, motions not to adopt. Article 52, Article 55, motions to adopt. Article 59, a motion to adopt. Article 65, Article 66, and Article 68, motions to adopt. So is there a motion to support the planning board motions on these articles?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, any comments on that? Christie? Yeah.
Was 62 in there?
62 is not in there. They have not finished that yet. It's by my records. They have not. And by
Yeah,
the
that's
list,
what I have too.
and by the list Mrs. Snell gave me, that's not either. 62 we'll be doing later on. Any other comments?
Yeah, could you
No.
email that list just so that I make sure I've got it right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that. All right, yeah, I'll email it if you could. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Any other comments on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of supporting the planning board motions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. All right, so we're moving along. Moving along on the agenda, I think until the board acts on the sewer articles, we're just going to bypass those and come back to those, which brings us up to Article 76, which is the poles and wires. Does everybody have a copy of the warrant, by the way? If not, I'll pass around. And this is an article submitted by the board. It's a bylaw amendment, removal of poles and wires. And Libby, you did go through this with us before. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments?
cleanup, it says.
Yep. Anybody feel so inclined?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, a motion to adopt, is there a
Second.
second? Second, thank you. Discussion on the motion to adopt for Article 76? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries, very good. Article 77 is a bylaw amendment, peace and good order. And again, this is a cleanup, or straightening things out. You're down to your head, good, okay. There's a, to read there. Any comments on this article?
Motion.
Motion to adopt? Okay, is there a second?
Yep.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion on the motion to adopt, Article 77? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Article 78, it's a bylaw amendment, peace and good order. This is, again, I think,
Clarification
thank you.
Yeah.
Good, find the right word.
that the amplification of, Wall Street performance.
Comments on the motion?
Adopt.
Motion to adopt, thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, Cliffy, I'm sorry, yep, yeah. What do you got?
Libby, the fee has been scratched. Is it
On 78, on A.
78? Oh, I see, it's picked up in the, oh, that's a violation.
Yeah, so he said,
Oh,
it gives the board of selectmen the ability to change it from time to time
Okay.
at a hearing.
So it'll probably stay 50 in cover. Or when this is approved, they'll set it.
But then we don't have to go back to town meeting, they can just have their own.
They can do
vote.
that, correct?
I was at part of the planning board meeting where, but I didn't stay till the very end when this came up, and I think,
This came up with the planning board? Wow, okay.
because this might,
The peace and order, wow, okay.
It's not a zoning bylaw, so I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm
maybe I'm
surprised it came up.
mistaken with, because I know there were neighbors from the Ash Lane area that were concerned about noise from, I guess, the Brotherhood having
You were?
I think that's
entertainment.
a zoning article.
Was it zoning?
That's not this? I don't know. I haven't heard anything on those.
It's not,
It's not part of this?
no, but I have a vague recollection of something involving those,
Maybe
the,
that anyway, also.
scenario, but I think it's,
Because there were quite a few neighbors on Ash Lane that,
'cause this
that showed
doesn't
up.
have anything to do with the Brotherhood. Or any other establishments, street performance only.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? We do have a motion, and that's been seconded to adopt Article 78. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good. Moving along, the next is a Article 79, it's a bylaw amendment for wharves and waterways, and again, it's a cleanup and clarification. A few things in here.
There's rewrite waterway act.
It's pretty much of a rewrite, there's a lot of stuff, this hasn't been overhauled in a lot
Right.
of time, and lots of things have changed since this was initially adopted at town meeting, so it's a cleanup to really portray current conditions.
Comments? Joe?
Curious, is this the kind of rewrite that somebody's going to get up at town meeting and say, I've been a lobsterman on this island for 75 years and you're screwing everything up, and I mean,
Everybody has
I
their
haven't read it word for word, Libby. I'm just sort of curious whether that you have any fears that there's somebody's going to crawl out from under an old
There's
dinghy.
always that possibility.
Yeah, we'll try to make sure that the Shellfish and Harbor Advisory Board, which this doesn't really have anything to do with them, understands it, so that hopefully their constituents can.
And as a general statement, that's why, I mean, there's always that possibility for any article, but we try to, that's why we try to have the meetings and the public hearings to be transparent, but there's always somebody.
Okay.
So, so to answer your question, it could.
Okay.
You don't
Okay.
know. That's-
We can all make a list of the people.
Yeah, and, I mean, from my standpoint, just that, it's, I'm sure the administration staff and the Harbor Marine staff has researched this out, and it seems appropriate to make things up from my end.
Okay.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to adopt?
We have a motion, is there a second? Second. Okay, discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And just to go back to these last four articles, unless anyone feels we need to make a comment, I think we're pretty much all set. And as for making comments, just to go over, our motion is to adopt, not to adopt, take no action, table, whatever. Comments in addition to one or two sentence statement of why we feel the way we feel. So, like, for example, going back to 42, Mr. Murray will let a comment on summarizing the feelings of this committee, so we can do that for any order. Okay.
Well,
sorry, I should have mentioned that. John?
Even these, you know, I mean, these are cleanup articles, so, I mean, that's an explanation.
No, it could be.
Of saying that, you know, that this is an attempt to, by the town to make sure that their rules, regulations, and et cetera, you know, are up to date and really, you know.
I would suggest not cluttering up the warrant with a bunch of comments after each article, but I am going to do the guide again.
Great.
So it'll be
The guy.
explained in there.
That's good. All right. Yeah, that's very well put. Okay. The next article is a citizens bylaw, the ban, Article 80, bylaw amendment, to ban on sale and use of balloons. I did send you some information, it had to be around New Year's before, on that. And again, we're certainly at our freedom to move on this. Discussion. John?
Yeah, does anybody here, you know, I heard him talk, I listened to him and everything else, but I don't know, you know, I don't, usually on things like this, I'll dig into them a little bit, and I haven't bothered to do this, and so I don't really know. I always hate to depend on a person who comes before us and taking them at face value without doing a little bit of checking, but I must admit I haven't done any checking on this, so it certainly sounds like it's from my perspective, it sounds like it might be a fairly reasonable thing to do, but I don't know enough about it.
Okay. Greg?
I guess as a follow-up to what John said, has there been any input from anyone else objecting?
No, nothing. Everything that we've gotten, I've sent to you. That was only
Okay.
one thing.
Yep.
I haven't heard anything from anybody. Christie?
Yeah, I have not heard one person mention this,
No?
other than when Mr. Lerner came in and spoke to us. I could see, if the community hasn't really been educated or exposed to this article, that I could see the town probably not voting for it, thinking it's just some sort of flip thing, but it probably has some merit. I think Libby yourself may have said that you do find a lot of balloons when you're doing cleanup. You know, so I mean, not sure.
John?
Libby, is this going to be easily enforceable?
Lighted air balloons, not just, you can get
It's
rid
just-
of balloons, just light
It's
it
just
air.
helium.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Just the
like
healing.
certain kinds of balloons.
Yeah, I think at the point of sale, it's not very difficult.
No,
There's
that's
not many.
easy. That's
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you know, I don't think I think we talked about it before, you don't tax children at birthday parties, but you tax them at the point of sale, you know?
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
just.
know, it only takes getting fined once or twice before you get out of the balloon business, you know, and then people are not importing balloons, I don't think, in any case, so
I'm
I
sure
think it's fairly easy.
Work on some kind of educational campaign, I'm sure Scott would need help.
Yeah.
To let anybody know on island who's selling these things.
Yeah, I don't think there are many
Doing helium?
retail, I mean, I think Island Variety and someone else might
Right.
sell helium balloons.
Yeah, Anderson's.
But you can buy tanks of helium and fill up your own balloons. You know, those are available at party supply stores on the mainland, so that possibility might exist, where you have someone coming over to the island for an event or something, and they're not aware that this is now in place, and all of a sudden we're seeing helium balloons. Like, how did that happen? So,
Well, another thing, that's a good point about people coming over, we have a whole event application process and review process and stuff, we could put it in our materials. There's a kind of a list of things that you can't do, and that would be, this would be the
So it sounds like you could corner a sizable percentage of it anyway.
think so. I don't
Yeah.
think you'd have to send people out necessarily.
And I think that's the
That's what I
idea.
was
It's just to-
envisioning.
I think the idea is that we're just cutting down on this type of
Yeah,
ruffian.
yeah.
So,
The balloon
you know,
police I was thinking of, but
Okay. Well,
You know,
oh, Craig?
Motion to adopt?
Oh, all right, so motion to adopt, or a second? Second. Did you want to make a comment?
well, my comment was just to Christie's point about education for this article. You know, it's not the typical article that I would suggest the finance committee make a comment on, but you know, maybe there should be a comment from us, or you know, in lieu of a comment from anybody else about why this is necessary. I mean,
speaks for itself.
I think, I
you know,
get the information.
maybe it
since-
doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott
well,
thought he
how
had to
about
come
this?
here and present it,
Before-
and it hasn't occurred to anybody before, so maybe, you know, 2 sentences about why it's necessary might be helpful.
You could get a line from, I think, the information that he gave us. There was enough of it, so if we could do a lawyer, we could steal the line from some of
Christie? And then Craig?
the information.
Let's just talk about the motion
As
right
a
now. We'll talk
well,
about
as
the
a
comment
finance
afterwards.
committee, I don't think we're removing that much that the community really, I mean, the fact that the helium balloons, I don't think we're putting on this huge, like, onerous thing onto the community by just removing, you know.
Okay.
Town council approved the article.
Informed.
As to form,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
It's
to
not an
form.
illegal article,
Right.
it wasn't a.
Yeah, that's all he's saying.
Greg?
Well, and I would think this would be something that would be in the guide that Libby's going to present, as you
And then we can
describe
leave
this.
it on, you know, Mr. Leonard to speak for himself.
Sure.
That's exactly
Yep.
right.
So, yeah.
He'll make his
Okay.
case.
That's exactly right. Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the article as written, and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, moving right along here. The next one is 81, which is acceptance of Massachusetts general law pertaining to a capital project stabilization fund. Excuse me. And there's a little bit of discussion on this. Part of the discussion is that we, as a committee, we're going to come up with some recommendations of how this is implemented to the board, and we can still do that if we'd like to, but that's an aside to this. As for the setting up this stabilization fund, comments from the committee? John?
Yeah, I've been pushing for this for several years, because and a lot of people say, well, we already have a stabilization fund, and I say, no, that's different. That's for operational purposes. This is for capital purposes, there's this, over the time that I've been involved, there's a significant difference between one and the other. And I think from a planning point of view, this needs to be a part of the planning. And it just was an orderly way of setting something up so that we can deal with it, because capital expenditures, as we're learning this year, they do not come at you in a level form. You'll hit 2 or 3 years in a row where you don't have anything particular. Well, those years you start to push money into this, and then you hit a year where you have something, and that'll in the long run, I think, go a long way to mitigating the possibility of tax increases, you know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Um,
sir. Yes, Lynn.
When we presented the general fund budget to the board for fiscal 16 and to you all, one of our recommendations is a sum of money to go in here. And it's still slightly up in the air because it is a result of how much free cash would be appropriated, and basically whatever is left over, we're proposing go into this fund.
Okay.
So we're ready to provide a proposed motion to you when we have that number. And just as a quick FYI, at our board meeting next week, we're going to be discussing funding sources for the damage to the town pier from the storm. That's about a $1.2 million assessment, and we are going to be recommending, to make a long story short, that we use free cash for that. Even with using that, we have about $1.2 million left in free cash that would be unallocated, and I think our recommendation is to put all or most of it into this fund.
Let me ask you, that sounds like a great idea, if approval. If would it would it help you if we did a technical amendment on that number at town meeting? Or would you know it by the time before the printer?
I think we're gonna know it.
You'll know before it goes to the
I
printer?
think so.
Okay.
And so I would recommend we put a number in.
Okay.
And if we have to adjust it a little bit, we
Okay.
could do a technical amendment, but I'd rather have people see what the admin.
Would you want us to hold off on this until you have a number?
Yeah, probably, so we don't, it's
Fair
just
enough.
not 100%.
Okay. Well, no, that's fine. I think if, sounds like pretty positive so far. Christie, then Cliff. Yeah. we could do that.
Would a capital stabilization fund follow the same rules as the percents as a stabilization fund?
Well, that's what,
Wait, what?
Same policy?
just saying there's the answer is, that's what I mentioned before, is that we can, the selectmen will establish the policy for this.
Yes, and I'm
Correct.
sure we will send it to you all to review and comment on. I thought you meant the process to appropriate in or out of it. It's the same as the stabilization.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
And so that's what I said about before, is that we can make recommendations to the selectmen, and they can take them or not as part of, when they set the policy.
all right.
Cliff?
Did I see another article, or is this, somewhere I read the part about what he talked about, where it said free cash to be deposited, was that some? Draft
That's probably the free
somebody-
cash article.
That's the last one.
I probably said it somewhere along the
Okay, I
line.
thought it was
There is a free cash article.
That's the
There
last
is a
one.
free cash
That's the last
article,
one.
but,
That's where it talks, yeah.
in the documents that you guys probably have from the budget stuff, it might be in there. But we also have a free cash article that's.
Right, number 111, correct?
So assume this goes through, with the money that goes into this fund, it's readily usable for like 2017 for capital projects? Is that the idea, that it's there and then it can be
It would
used?
have to be appropriated
Mhm.
at town meeting to the vote, but.
But that's,
It would be.
Same rules as the stabilization fund, and again, with the stabilization fund, that is, or the synonym is a rainy day fund. It's a vote, a two-thirds vote at town meeting to put money into it, or is majority to put money into it, two-thirds to take it out, with the stipulation that it has to be replenished the following fiscal year.
That's policy,
That's the
Yeah.
policy, that's the
That's
policy.
the policy for the
Yeah.
stabilization.
Right.
Currently.
Currently,
current.
yes,
Yeah.
just to, but I think that's germane to this.
Yeah, and that would be a policy that has to be changed.
And again, going back to, that's where.
If you're gonna use it, you wanna change it, you gotta.
In fact, going back to, that's where this committee can make a recommendation to the board on that. In fact, actually, while we're on the subject, would anyone like to take the reins on that and come up with a tentative list to bring back to this committee for discussion? I think our capital rep would seem to be very appropriate that you take the mantle
When do you need it by?
on March 2nd.
Are you discussing the way the stabilization should be set up? Because, I mean, they tend to go.
Policy.
Oh, okay. Because you can set it up, when I went to one of these classes,
Mhm.
Franklin Mass,
Yep.
they started talking about the
Yep.
same thing, and I said, raised my hand, I said, oh, I thought you could only do this, and that guy goes.
No, it's policy. The board sets a
"That's
policy.
not what it's-"
It's what the board,
Right,
it's at
right.
discretion,
So, I mean,
right.
it starts out, it's open-ended. You can create this fund however you want.
I think we're all in agreement. What I was mentioning before is that we have a policy now, and certainly can be, the board can,
But
Change
that's
if they
just
want.
for that particular fund. So
That's
every time you
correct.
start a new one, it's starting a new.
Right.
Okay.
yeah.
So you go,
All right? All right, so that's, and I think the board will appreciate that, at least that's what the chairman told me.
Okay.
Okay, did somebody else have their hand up on this?
Libby, you want to get your oar in on that at all, or do you just want me to write it up?
Okay. All right. So then, moving on, 82 and 83, we have done. It is 5:45. The next ones are a few of the home rule petitions. We can certainly start delving into these, or we can save these till Tuesday, because that is pretty much the main thing on our agenda for Tuesday. So I'm perfectly comfortable in calling it a day on the articles today, and then we'll pick up on Tuesday with 84. And I'll maybe put some others on there, some lower numbers on there, too. I'll look that through. Okay? So why don't we do that? Unless, did anybody have any objections to that?
No.
Okay, so we'll do that. Good, which brings us up to the date of our next meeting, which is Tuesday, February 17th, at 4:30 at the municipal cafeteria, and we'll continue what we started here. So, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, very good. And there's 3 of you need to stay around for a little bit. First meeting of the subcommittee.
Rich